Welcome back to another episode of Careful Boys. Today we got Lyrics Born with us.
Heyo.
Anthony had a really good question to ask you, actually.
So you had mentioned previously that, like, for example, when, you know, some of your people in your camp or homies were getting signed and stuff, you would run into these situations where people would be like, you're really hard to market, and then you would eventually learn that, you know, what that kind of really meant was also like, hey, you're Asian. On the other side of that same topic, did you ever run into just whether it's being in your own community or part of that culture where people were giving you any friction for being an Asian, doing this type of music, repping this type of culture, anything like that?
Not really.
Damn, so the swag was just so authentic, nobody gave a shit.
Well, okay. Okay, so this is how I would answer that question. Coming from where I come from, the Bay Area, it was not unusual to see Asians doing what I did. So all I had to do was look around and, okay, you've got Invisible Scratch Pickles over here, as to, you know, like they were big before I even started rapping, you know what I mean? Like Q-Bert and Apollo and Shortcut and those guys, and then Dan the Automator was making records before any of us, you know, and because the Bay Area is so diverse, even more so back then, you know, was so diverse, I didn't think I was doing anything that unusual. You know, it wasn't until I started touring that I was like, oh shit, I might be the only Asian person in this town on stage right now, and I'm the only guy in this city, you know. But people were coming out. They were buying the tickets. They were there because they obviously had heard the music and bought the music, you know. I think early on, I faced a little bit of sort of, I don't know, in-group, maybe some, outside of the Bay Area, I think maybe I felt some of that from Asians sometimes because, you know, I got curly hair, I didn't quite fit the stereotype, you know, it wasn't quite how we're used to seeing ourselves, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was an unconventional profession for a lot of Asians to see, you know. That changed over time, you know, over time because we started to accept, I feel like my observation is our self-concept of what it means to be, particularly an Asian male, you know, I think got broader, got wider, you know, like I think a lot of times we wouldn't even see biracial Asians as Asian, you know, or we wouldn't see, we just didn't think of ourselves that way. And I think the way that the world has changed is that we're just we're inclusive as a community. I think of like our own self-definition has broadened and expanded.
That's true.
I have a similar kind of experience to you because like me and Bart growing up in California, the coolest kids in some of the schools were like, it wasn't like the stereotype of like, oh, you're the nerd or whatever, right? And then when we started traveling and doing shows, and a lot of the times the Asian culture clubs would hire us to speak at their whatever event, and and the gripe was always the same thing. It was like, yeah, man, they think we're like this and nerdy, and I'm like, cause you are. Look at the way you dress. And then
double down.
But I didn't grow up around that.
They're not wrong.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
But then I was like, of course, you know, you do look like you don't have no style. Like, what the fuck? Like, but then in LA or like, you don't have that same stereotype.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, why are they thinking this way? And I realized we're the minority.
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, most Asians are upper middle class. They're like good students, and that's the stereotype, right? And then when I was like growing up, and I'm like, where are these Asians? Like, that's not my friends. That's
You're
not my
defiant from the
community.
nationwide norm.
Yeah. And then when I saw that, I was like, oh, we're the weirdos.
Yeah.
But that's true. In your own circle, that was normal.
Yeah. But even in LA, I think it's the Asian diversity is so big that you don't.
Right.
There's so many to choose from.
Exactly.
There's so many different styles, even different kinds of Asian. Like,
That's right.
yeah, there's like hundreds of thousands of Japanese by themselves, and then Chinese, and then like Koreans, and like there's enough for it to be like its own thing by itself.
Yeah.
Like you could operate as a non-English speaking Chinese, not even having citizenship, live in your own community, like everything's cash. You could go to the markets, everything. It's like there's none of that outside of California, really. Maybe New York. But
That's why, like, I thought it really spoke to me when I was watching Mean Girls. And you know, in the beginning of Mean Girls, she's going through the whole school talking about all the cliques.
Yeah.
And she goes, the Asians, the cool Asians.
Yeah.
And that like hit me hard because I'm like, that's what I grew up with. I didn't, like most movies only have nerd Asians.
Yeah.
But the fact that they didn't even hang out, I was like, that's us.
Yeah.
That's so
Can we talk about this too? Like this part I really fucking hate too, right? Like when we talk about, what are we talking about? When we talk about Asians, are we talking about Chinese? And what does that even mean? Are we talking about Taiwanese? Are we talking about
100%.
then, you know, there's Mongol, like in the Bay Area also we have Mongolians, we have Tibetans.
He said that's all the same.
That's what Anthony said.
1000%, bro. Yeah.
He calls them ching chongs, all of them.
Yeah. No, you're right though, because they'll talk about this like, you know, Asians in America, and I'm like, no, but most of the people that are saying that, it's actually Chinese or Korean because they're in media. So when they talk about the Asian community, most of it is like, oh wait, no, you're from NorCal, like I don't know, like Mountain View or whatever. You grew up a certain way, and you're trying to talk for the rest of us. And I'm like, but that's not. We don't even connect with this guy.
I guess the particular of my question is not so much like, you know, because we've been part of like the hip hop dance culture where the friction didn't necessarily come from fellow Asians. If anything, it was more gatekeepers of hip hop.
Yeah, okay.
What skin color is that, you think?
Mainly the black community.
I knew it. Okay, keep going.
Yeah.
But in honest conversation, you know, because like, and it's only highlighted if you find success too, to be completely honest, right? If you're underground or if you're just trying to like enjoy your craft or become whatever, it's like nobody gives a shit about it. Nobody tries to punch down, right? But then second, you maybe like get some sort of, you know, TV spot or you get some sort of like recognition for
Then
it.
you get an email from Tyrone.
Then you get, you know, this conversation of whether or not you're like appropriating culture. And the thing is, as an Asian American or American in general, it's like you grow up in the culture, so you just do what you know what's around you. You listen to the music that's on the radio station that everybody else around you listens to. So you just think you're doing what's American.
But that sounds like a post 2019. Because if you went to any hip hop event or whatever, it wasn't like that. It was like, no, everyone's battle rapping. Doesn't matter what race you are. Everyone's breakdance. Like everything was like hip hop was like everybody join, everybody make music, right? But after COVID, I think everything became like
Scrutinized for
because
sure.
it was every community. Like there were Asian kids going, "This is my culture. Don't make it your fucking costume."
Don't make it your project.
Right, and then it's like we never had that pre-COVID.
Yeah.
It was a different scene.
You feel like that was different?
You know, appropriation is a thing, man. You know, and I think that, frankly, I understand. You know, if people don't like or have a problem with seeing folks who are traditionally outside the culture making a living or actually living within something that another culture has created, I get it. We should feel that way. You know, we should feel like protective of what we've created. You know, we should feel like we have ownership over that. You know, so like, yeah, I mean, I get comments too. Like, you know, people say things like, You know, this is maybe they'll see me not that often, really, but it does happen. You know, I see comments like, "Oh, this is cultural appropriation," and I'm like, "Bro, you have every right. I mean, I don't need to tell you. You have every right to feel that way. You feel however you want to feel. You know, I mean, because I understand on a certain level. I understand how many ramen restaurants you've been into. You know, where the guy doesn't look Japanese to me." You know, and Chad is going to sit there and school you on the history of ramen, you know, and then charge you $100 a bowl, you know, or even with Dinner and Place, like, you know, my cooking show when I was making sushi, you know, I'm not classically trained. I learned from my father, you know, and I would see comments from like a couple times there were white chefs like, that's not how you make the rice. and ultimately, and I'm like, motherfucker, I'm Japanese. I cannot make this wrong. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't. There's no way I could. I don't care how you learned how to do it. There's no wrong way for me to make rice. I am Japanese, you know, and so I understand when people say that or they feel that way. You should feel that way. You should feel protective of what you're doing, you know? And then it's up to you to decide if you feel like I belong or not. You know what I mean? But that doesn't necessarily change the way that I feel about what my life's purpose is.
That's cool, yeah.
Do you understand?
Like you have your feelings, I have my feelings. You have your opinions, I have my opinions.
Very mature.
I'm not gonna tell anybody how to feel. You know, that's, you feel how you feel, bro. You know, it's just, I get it. You know, and I understand on those lines that we have to be protective, but I would like to think that I am moving the culture forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would like to think. And if that's not acceptable to some folks, I understand. That's okay. I'm okay with that.
I'm still mad at Wu-Tang Clan using all that Chinese kung fu
He brings
stuff.
it up every day.
Pisses me off.
I honestly think that's one of the most articulate and mature ways to express something that is a modern conversation.
It is.
You know, because like that is a conversation, and I think if I were to be honest, sometimes the best way to handle it is to, because it's always an online conversation for the most part.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best way to respond to it is to not at all, so that it hopefully slowly dissipates. Because at the end of the day, like, the truth is, like you said, like, this is, I understand, it's just, this is what we do. I'm not gonna change my life because a couple comment warriors think and feel something that they might be totally right for feeling. I just think I might also feel the way I feel about what I like to do type stuff. But it's also, sometimes you need the feeling of credibility coming from somebody who's maybe been a part of the culture that has moved it forward for like decades, in a sense, you know, to be like, oh yeah, like this is how we grew up and who we grew up around in the culture and the music. And it's like, to see that today, you know, and how somebody feels about it today is a really good kind of validation for like feeling okay about doing it as well when you're getting scrutinized online.
Yeah. I will add this though. I will add this. I do have a problem. If you have lived in a certain lane culturally that is not historically yours, and you have made a living in that lane, I do believe you have a financial responsibility to empower those outside who you have derived your cultural inspiration or your living from. I do believe you do have a responsibility to empower those folks also to excel. So like, I have a problem when I see chefs who have made a living doing, you know, creating food. Let's just, there's not a lot of them out there, but let's just say you're a chef and you are not Japanese, and you have made, and you're part of the mainstream, and you have made a living creating Japanese food and da 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 da. If you're not bringing Japanese chefs up to help follow in your footsteps, you know, and help them by creating a path for them, I do have a problem with that, you know, because that ultimately, that's how you would pay homage in today's society. I think it's not enough anymore to say, but I'm true to the values and I'm keeping it real, you know, and my food is good, you know. That's not enough for me, you know. And I feel the same way. Like, I understand, bro. Like, I look at some of these music festivals that have made their entire living off of, you know, black music or, you know, foreign music. And then you go and you look and you settle, or you look at their whole administration, there's not a single person that looks like what they are selling. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So I have a problem with that. I do have a problem with that. And I think if we really want to have a proper discussion, if someone is providing you with a living, then you need to provide them with a living.
Pay it back to the game.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's only karmically correct, you know? And I think that's a lot of times where people butt heads, is that part. You know, there's an economic component to this conversation that we can't ignore. You know what I'm saying? You have to do more than just respect the art form, than create the art respectfully. I think you have to create opportunities in the same way that opportunities were created for you. You know what I mean? So that's the part two to that discussion. And if people don't do that, I understand. You have every right to be upset, in my opinion. You know what I mean? So, I don't know.
Is there a difference though between, like, let's say there's like an up and coming like black artist that you can put on, you have the power or the opportunity to like help propel that dude, or just some other random person that's not even in music trying to tell you that you can't do it?
What was the second part to that?
Like the difference between like helping a fellow musician or just another person who's just black and is just like not even a musician, but they're trying to tell you that like you're appropriating.
Well, first of all, I think everybody's opinion is valid. First of all, I really do.
Even if they're stupid.
I'm the complete opposite. I think everyone's thoughts suck.
I may not agree.
Yeah, that's good.
I may not agree.
And they're still allowed to voice,
Yeah, but I do. I feel like everybody's opinion is valid. You feel how you feel for the reasons that you have. You know, I mean, I didn't live your life. You know, our experiences shape our opinions.
Yeah.
Right? And no two people have the same experience. You know what I mean? So I can't. You feel how you feel. I mean, I'm not. If I'm sitting here like, oh no, you're wrong for feeling that way. I mean, it's like
you can't really even change your mind. So
you know, I mean, you're gaslighting people at that point. You know what I'm saying? It's like
it's good strategy.
You know,
it reminds me of like, you remember when Chuck Norris was like under Bruce Lee, and Bruce Lee like kind of in a way co-signed him. It'd be like a random Chinese guy today telling him he can't be doing it.
Yeah, because he's a Guai Lo. Why you gonna let the Guai Lo do this one?
It's like, if I still see a difference in value between who's co-signing you.
Like, let me ask you this, because this came up in sort of, I'll call it a informal group chat among some of my friends. Did Chuck Norris put on any Asians the way that Bruce Lee put on Chuck Norris? Damn. That you're aware of?
He was just beating them up in the movies.
I don't know if Chuck Norris put anyone on.
I don't know of anything he did.
He put himself on Walker, Texas.
Did he have an obligation to do so, in your opinion? You know, let me ask you that.
I never thought of it that way, but now I'm starting to say so you kind of swayed me on this.
And it doesn't mean that Chuck wasn't good at what he did. It doesn't mean that Chuck... I don't even know the answer. Well, I don't know his business, you know. But it doesn't mean that he wasn't true to the art. It doesn't mean he didn't follow all the principles, you know.
Yeah.
But did he put anybody on the way that Bruce put him on? You know.
But maybe that's why his legacy isn't as big as like a Bruce.
It's pretty big in a different way, though.
No, but Bruce was actually a rebel because he wasn't like
they were mad at
only Chinese. He got his ass beat for teaching. his thing was about let's get everybody into the sport, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Which he did.
Yeah.
so Bruce wasn't really so much let's put Asians on the spot, Asian Americans on the spot. It was more let's make martial arts.
Let's show this to the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we need a Guai Lo to help translate that, to
Exactly. He
people-
was more like that. So then if Chuck would he be what I think the right thing for him to do is get more martial artists out there, not an Asian American.
I feel like Chuck doing it or not doing it, or I guess not putting people on.
I don't know if he did or not.
Yeah.
Chuck, don't come after us.
He took the latter.
Because he might have.
Just conceptually, but like
Yeah.
let's say if we can't recognize anybody that he may have put on,
Yeah.
it doesn't make me disrespect him for it. If anything, it makes me just respect Bruce more for like choosing to do that.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because he's like, he's got kicks, let's put him on.
Well, yeah.
But do we have the right to say to Chuck, who did you put on?
Nope, because I'm Japanese and I was the villain in all of Bruce Lee movies. Every single time it's a bad guy.
But do we have the right to say that
Nah.
to Chuck?
Nope.
No.
I think if I was a student of Bruce, I might think about it.
Yeah. Now,
But I don't think I own martial arts.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Where like some people, they believe that they own a craft that they're not a participant in because it's a culture thing.
That's the part that gets
but
me.
this is something, as far as we know, was created by Asians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like martial arts to Asians is like black music to black people.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
our thing.
So this is something that okay, so one argument would be this is something that we created.
Yeah.
Chuck, we put you on. The fuck did you do? You know, for us.
That's a whole video.
But even thinking
Right.
about as Chuck Norris like being put on by
Yeah.
Bruce Lee, like that's
Yeah.
a concept that I've never even thought about.
Me neither.
And
yeah.
I've seen Way of the Dragon every day since I was like 7 years old.
Because he even put Jim Kelly in.
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
My boy
No, he was
Bob
already
Wall.
famous.
Bob Wall was the other white guy he beat up.
And Dan Inosanto for Filipinos.
Paul Wall?
Bob Wall. He was the other white guy he would beat up. Remember? I think his name was Bob Wall.
Benny the Jet.
He's the other Chuck Norris.
Yeah, he's the other white Chuck Norris. Yeah.
Benny the Jet.
And I don't have it in for Chuck. I'm just
Straight, that's a good example.
These are analogies.
Yeah. It's a good conversation.
That's a really good question.
Did maybe, you know, he's had his issues these recently, but could we say the same thing about Steven Seagal? Could we say
Especially him. Because he wears the clothes as casual clothes.
yeah, I'm like, bro, you're in a kimono.
Yeah. And he bows to Asians.
But you know what though? His Japanese is so good. I was fucking surprised.
good?
He could speak really good Japanese.
But is he
you're in.
putting on Japanese people?
He's beating them up in movies.
You
He's
know,
hitting them for real.
Flipping them around on demos. And
could we? I mean, the list goes on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Could we say that about Claude Van Damme? Could we say that about?
Wesley Snipes.
I just think that Asian culture specifically is very like when people like it's like, you know, when a foreigner goes to Asia and they like speak any type of Asian, they
love it.
Everybody's like, wow, pull out their phones, record it.
We're just more welcoming.
Yeah.
We're just happy that you're a part of it.
Yeah, we're down.
You know, like
Yeah,
we're
so-
just happy that you like martial arts and shit. You know, that's how I feel.
But like that's just a part of our
Yeah.
generic culture.
Remember how you were saying that appropriation almost hurt Asian American markets in the way
Yeah,
that people
like,
won't
think
buy
about-
souvenirs the way they used to at Little Tokyo?
People are so afraid of cultural appropriation that like all those gift shops in Chinatown and Little Tokyo or whatever, they're suffering because white people don't want to buy the kimonos and the hats and all those things that they're like, oh, I'm going to Chinatown, I'm getting this little bracelet or whatever. They're like, oh, I don't want to get it because I don't want to seem like I'm appropriating here. But it's like now the Asians are actually suffering that have those gift shops because they can't fucking
crazy.
sell the shit.
That's crazy.
They gotta sell to other Asians.
What's the Filipino doll with the dick pops
Oh,
up
yeah.
and shit? And you're like,
Yeah,
we used to sell tons of these.
I got a garage full of
The
those.
fuck happened?